Digital democracy.
Welcome to the Digital Democracy Podcast. I'm your host, Julia Myers. Today, I'm joined by Andreas Nitsche, one of the founding minds behind Liquid Feedback, the platform that turned liquid democracy from a theoretical idea into something people actually use. Andreas, great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Today, we're diving into liquid democracy as a system that learns, adapts, and regulates itself over time. Let's start from the top. What exactly is liquid democracy?
At its core, liquid democracy gives people a choice. You can either participate directly in decision-making, or you can delegate your influence to someone you trust. What makes it interesting is that this delegation is specific to the topic. It can be revoked at any time, and it's transitive. So if someone delegates to you, you can delegate further. It's a way to stay engaged in the issues you care most about while delegating the rest, without ever giving up the option to change your mind.
Why do we need a system like that?
In most organizations, members want to have a say, but their interests vary and time is limited. Liquid democracy gives them the flexibility to decide when and how to participate, and what to get involved in.
So it helps avoid both overwhelm and exclusion?
Exactly. You can dive deep into issues that matter to you and hand off the rest to people you trust. It's about respecting people's time and expertise while keeping their democratic rights fully intact.
You're also involved in the Pericles Project. What's that about?
Pericles stands for Participatory Democracy That Scales. It's a project funded under Horizon Europe, the European Union's research and innovation program. What's unique is how it brings together democratic theory, social science, and computer science, working together to rethink how digital democracy platforms should be designed from the ground up. We're exploring how to make participation meaningful, inclusive, and scalable, from small communities to international contexts. It's the first project to really integrate these fields so tightly, and we hope it sets a new standard for how civic tech is built and evaluated.
As part of that project, you recently co-authored a paper with Davide Grossi titled Delegations as Adaptive Representation Patterns, Rethinking Influence in Liquid Democracy. You presented it at the European Network for Digital Democracy conference in Paris at the Centre d'économie de la Sorbonne, and you opened with a provocative line. What if everything you fear about liquid democracy is caused by looking at it the wrong way? Let's unpack that. What do people usually misunderstand?
Many models treat liquid democracy like a static snapshot, just a graph of who delegates to whom. But in reality, that's not how it works. Liquid democracy is a process. It evolves over time. When we look at actual implementations, many of the supposed risks, like amassing power or delegation cycles, don't play out the way one might expect.
Your paper argues for a broader view of delegation, not just about voting. What are we missing?
That's right. Delegation isn't just about the final vote. In systems like liquid feedback, delegation also affects the deliberation process. So if I take part in a discussion and someone has delegated to me, their delegation adds to the weight of my contribution.
In the paper, you talk about adaptive representation patterns. What does that mean?
Liquid democracy reduces the burden on participants by allowing them to delegate. But starting from scratch on every issue would be exhausting. That's why liquid feedback maintains a structure of delegations that evolves over time. It supports a hierarchy of delegations. You can set a general default, refine with policy area defaults, and even topic-specific ones. When an issue comes up, the most specific available delegation is used. This means you can set things once and then fine-tune over time, without micromanaging every detail. The evolving representation patterns show who tends to be influential in different areas, but crucially, anyone can jump in and participate directly at any time. And of course, delegation patterns adapt as participants change their delegations.
That sounds powerful. So, when you talk about adaptive representation, do you mean the system actually changes as people adjust their delegation choices over time based on what they experience? Almost like it's learning?
That's right. As a socio-technological system, it adapts when participants change their delegation choices based on experience and observation. an ongoing adjustment that helps the representation patterns better reflect the community's needs. You could call that learning.
Let's touch on transitive delegations. How do they actually work, and why are they important?
The beauty of transitive delegations is that they let you delegate to peers, people like you who don't already have more power. And from the system's point of view, transitivity helps it scale. You don't have to track down someone who's going to engage directly in a specific decision. That way, participation stays simple, and at the same time, it pushes back against oligarchic structures, making representation more decentralized, more responsive, and more adaptive.
Critics often worry about power concentrating too much. What's your perspective?
It's a fair concern. If A delegates to B, B to C, and so on, people wonder if someone ends up with too much control. But in practice, influence doesn't spiral. In the paper, we show that transitive delegation doesn't lead to runaway power. In fact, it helps keep power in check. Influence decays exponentially as it passes through transitive delegations. And importantly, this happens while still upholding the one person, one vote principle for all votes cast.
One elegant detail you highlight is the idea of suspension. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. In liquid feedback, when you take direct action, whether that's voting, supporting a proposal, or suggesting an improvement, your delegation for that specific activity is automatically suspended. You don't need to manually revoke anything. It gives people autonomy in the moment without messing up their delegation settings. The system remembers your delegation, but your direct action takes priority.
So I don't need to recall and renew my delegations. I can just lean in when I care and lean back when I don't?
Exactly. Suspension lets you stay in control without having to constantly tweak your settings. It separates the decision on direct involvement from the management of delegations in a very user-friendly way.
And what about delegation cycles? Say when A delegates to B, B delegates to C, and C delegates back to A. Some people see those as a problem, but you argue otherwise.
Right. Cycles are often discussed as something to be avoided. In practice, though, they don't cause any problems. They're automatically resolved the moment anyone in the cycle acts directly, votes, supports, or suggests. Otherwise, they just sit there harmlessly with no effect. In fact, people sometimes create cycles on purpose as a kind of mutual safety net. If I forget to vote, you've got me covered. And if you forget, I'll vote for both of us. As soon as at least one participant in a cycle votes directly, all votes within that cycle, as well as any delegated to it, are effectively cast. They don't reduce the number of votes, they raise it. At best, cycles are beneficial. At worst, they're irrelevant.
So your paper is really suggesting a new way of thinking about liquid democracy?
That might sound ambitious, but yes, that's the idea. We aim to establish the foundation for a theory of liquid democracy that fully embraces its temporal and adaptive nature. From there, we can develop richer models of influence, representation, and how groups make decisions together.
Andreas, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That was Andreas Nitsche talking about liquid democracy as an adaptive learning system. You'll find the paper he co-authored with Davide Grossi linked in the show notes. We're wrapping up today's episode with Friends, Romans, Countrymen from the Liquid Feedback soundtrack. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Digital Democracy Podcast.
I come to speak of feedback, liquid and clear. A vision of democracy born anew, where power rests not in the hands of few, but each voice rises strong and unafraid to shape the laws that by us all are made. Brutus may say the danger lies therein, that letting many speak brings chaos in. Yet I tell you, it is the people's right to guide their fate with wisdom and with might. No tyrant here, no silent subjects bound, but liberty's pure echo all around. Imagine, friends, a realm where all may share their hopes, their dreams, their counsel, and their care, where delegation flows from trust and thought, and every choice is by our hands now wrought. No longer will the powerful decide, for in each citizen the strength resides. True, there may come a time when passion sways, when tempers flare and reason's voice delays. Yet fear not the fire that democracy brings, for through that forge the truest metal sings. It is not chaos, but a chorus free of minds united, seeking harmony. Let us embrace this feedback, strong and bold, a chance to shape our future uncontrolled, with open hearts and voices lifted high. We shall not falter, nor the truth deny. For Rome, for all, let us together steer. In liquid feedback's light, no dark we fear. So let each voice be heard, both great and small, in this new world where justice stands for all. For only when the many find their say can we ensure a bright and better day.
This concludes today's episode of the Digital Democracy Podcast, yours in the service of liberty and justice.